At this time in my life, it's become a kind of a brutal hike.
This time on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show.
He started yelling at me and cussing me out, asking me what I was going to do with the mule poop that was on the trail.
Oh my gosh.
It's a story of service and sacrifice.
I've sacrificed everything in my life just for this one job.
And one man's commute to the bottom of the Grand Canyon.
I see something brand new during every single hike.
I'm Brian Special, and this is the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show presented by Bright Angel Outfitters. Bright Angel Outfitters is a Canyon-centric brand my wife and I started to help folks have their best possible experience at the canyon. As we head toward the warmer months, you might want to check out our Grand Canyon Shade Tracker, which lets you see when and where you will have shade anywhere in the Grand Canyon on any day and at any hour. It's an investment we made because we know how difficult and dangerous the direct sun can be on canyon hikes, and this lets you plan for hiking in the shade, which, trust me, makes those warm hiking days so much more tolerable and a whole lot safer. You can try out the Grand Canyon Shade Tracker for free on our website, brightangeloutfitters.com, or at gcshadetracker.com. It is absolutely amazing. There are also canyon-themed tees and sweatshirts at brightangeloutfitters.com. Yeah, we have a Victor Vomit t-shirt, if you know, you know, and a new Ditch Digger design. Yeah, Ditch Digger. Haha, get it? The folks seem to really like, as well as an entire rim-to-rim collection. There's something for everyone. That's at brightangeloutfitters.com. We do it for the love of the canyon. And now, on to the show. $7,000 miles. 7,000. That's like going from Los Angeles to New York and back again, and then going from LA to Dallas to top it off. Oh, except in Jerome Chavez's case, there would also be about 850 miles worth of elevation change on top of all that. You see, for the past 26 years, on almost every Tuesday, Jerome has made the 7-mile hike with 4,800 feet worth of elevation change, either down or up the majestic South Kaibab Trail. He does it for work. Jerome is a wastewater operator for the National Park Service and stationed at the bottom of the canyon near Phantom Ranch. As you might imagine, he has seen it all. And even though he says the hike takes more out of him than it used to, Jerome takes the responsibility of his long commutes very seriously.
I believe that, we're here in uniforms. We carry a radio with us, and it's our duty, it's our responsibility to be trail advocates and Grand Canyon guardians. So that's what I do, is I look around and I make sure that people are doing well. I ask questions, and a lot of times I end up hiking people out of the canyon. I'll put their pack on, strap it to my backpack, and hike them right back out because, we don't want people to perish. Yeah. It's a really brutal hike, and you got to have some sympathy and a little bit more caring for these folks, because a lot of people do come unprepared.
Probably the most beautiful commute in the world, don't you think?
I would say so, yes.
Well, I told Jerome that I'm super honored because when I met him in the parking lot, it's the first person I've ever met in the parking lot authorized to be parked in the South Kaibab Trail parking lot because private vehicles are not allowed. But Jerome is, because he's working down at Phantom Ranch. That's when you see cars in the parking lot, that's what it's for. So people, please don't try to park in the South Kaibab parking lot. It makes it tough on everyone. But I'm here with royalty. Grand Canyon royalty. So you ready to get started?
I'm ready to get started.
Let's do this, man. I'm so pumped. Let's go. It's always a good day in the canyon.
All right.
On this particular Tuesday in early March, Jerome is letting me tag along for his long walk to work. And almost immediately, just below the first set of South Kaibab switchbacks known as the Chimney, the stories began. Starting with the day he says he looked up and saw a mountain lion staring back at him. But that wasn't even the most memorable moment of that particular hike.
That same day, there was a small rock slide up the trail here, and it actually uncovered a couple of sand dollars, which was really cool. Just
sand dollars.
Sand dollars, and it proved to me at that point that yes, this was all an ocean at one time.
Wow.
And it was one of those times that was really, really neat.
That has to be one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of stories, but that one is at the top.
Not too much farther down, Jerome's frustration became palpable as he saw some fresh graffiti just off the trail.
I wish people wouldn't do this. It could stay in the rocks like this forever.
Yeah. This is horrid.
You see, there's some deep scratching in there.
Yeah, that'll be there forever.
Yeah.
Most came off with some water and a little elbow grease, but it's a reminder that people can sometimes be a problem.
For one instance, one time I was hiking up the trail here, and I got to one of the shaded corners, and an individual came up to me and he started yelling at me and cussing me out, asking me what I was going to do with the mule poop that was on the trail.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, well, sir, I really can't control that. Those are working mules. They're doing their own thing. And he started yelling with his profanity and with everything else that he had to give me. And I think because I was in the Park Service uniform, and he let me have it. And finally I said, sir, the only thing I can suggest is that you write to your congressman, because the mules have been here longer than I have been, and there's really nothing I can do.
That probably ticked him off even more, didn't it?
He was super upset, man, and he just stormed away. And a different time, there was an individual that was from a local tribe / reservation around here, and he was in a group, a hiking group, and there was about 30 of them all together, and they were up at the chimney here on the South Kaibab. And this guy was sitting at the top of the trail with his legs hanging over, and he was kicking rocks over the edge, and they were falling down on everybody on the trail, which we really try to prevent from happening.
Kind of dangerous.
Yeah, these rocks, can take someone out at such a high level. And so I got up to him, and I, real nicely, I asked him, that he needed to stop doing that stuff because he was going to hurt somebody. And he lit into me, and he just let me have it, and yelling at me that the Grand Canyon was his property and he could do whatever he wanted. Yeah, he let me have it, and I said, well, you just have a good day.
Sometimes that's all you can say.
That's all. That's all. That's all. I'm not going to get into any arguments. So.
No, we just had a group of younger guys pass us while we were talking there, and one of them was playing music for everyone to hear. What do you think about that? It's one of my big pet peeves.
That is a pet peeve. We ask them not to. Of course, we really can't control it.
Yeah.
We ask that they use their headphones and stuff like that, but to be blasting it out, not everybody wants to hear the music.
No.
Maybe they're getting psyched up and into their own music, but not everybody wants to hear it. So keep it to yourself. I mean, it's your music, yeah, go for it, but that's what we all have earbuds for, and there's a time and a place for everything. This is the Grand Canyon. It's not inside your car.
It's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world, man. Yeah. Common sense sometimes needs to prevail, doesn't it?
Yep. No. So, it would be nice if he had his own earbuds in, but, there again, you got to choose your battle. How are you folks doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Well, it looks like some of you just stepped out of an REI catalog.
Exactly.
That's excellent.
I'm prepared.
Yeah.
I bet you come up with a lot of one-liners.
Oh, I do. Especially when folks are having such a hard time, I try to be as jovial as I possibly can because you want to lighten that situation. Like I said before, this is such a rough hike, and people have a tendency to they get that negative thought process, and they want to give up. But if you can make it a little more lighthearted, then you can get those people to get up off the rock and start hiking again. What happens is they start on the rim and they keep on going, and they're thinking, oh, this is pretty easy. Yeah. Because you figure, most hikes that you take, they start at the bottom and go up to the top, and then you got to come down. Here, you start at the top and you go into the canyon, and you got to go back out. The trouble that people run into is that they start hiking and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going, and then they realize that, hey, there's no hotel, there's no services down at Phantom Ranch. I can't, just go to the front desk and say, can I have a room for the night? No, you gotta turn around and come back out, and that's the hard part. I've been on this trail. In fact, this last summer, I assisted a lady who had 12 ounces of water, and she went all the way to Skeleton Point, and that's where I met her, and I hiked her out from that point out. 12 ounces. I ended up giving her probably a liter of water just so she could get out, and electrolytes. And I actually eventually had to call dispatch, and they sent the EMTs to come and give her an IV because she was already out of it by the time we got up to just underneath the chimney there. But that happens often. That happens often where people underestimate the hike, the downhill hike, and then they severely underestimate how difficult it's going to be just to turn around and go right back out of the canyon. Another thing that I try to stress is keep tabs on your kids, because parents will come with 2 or 3 kids, and they'll let the little ones take off, and before you know it, they're 2 miles down the trail away from their parents. And so it turns into a big mess for the Park Service and for everybody's on their radios trying to locate these kids, trying to locate parents.
Another great frustration for Jerome and others, as hard as it might be for many of us to hear, is trail runners. But it feels important to understand why they feel that way and what we can all do to improve this sometimes negative perception.
They seem to be trying to reach some kind of record and some kind of arbitrary record.
Yeah, they have time goals.
Yeah. And why? Who knows? They've got their own personal records to beat or whatever. But what they do is they end up putting a lot of people in danger when you do that. And just to run down and kind of blow past somebody because they're moving a little bit slow or they're impatient or whatever, that's not really the way it's supposed to go. A lot of these trail runners, they have no regard for trail etiquette, and they just keep on going. And it's usually unsafe when you get like 4 or 5 runners at a time, and they all do the same thing. They blow right by people, and I've seen people get, pushed down onto the trail or pushed over, and it's just not fair. They're here too. These other hikers are here too to enjoy the canyon, and we kind of really don't want them to go away thinking, everything was great right up to the point where the trail runner pushed me over on the trail, and now I got this messed up knee to deal with. So,
what would your message be, Jerome, to trail runners? We have a lot of trail runners in our audience, and I always say, whether you're hiking for time goals or running for time goals, or you're just taking your time, hike your own hike. But what does that mean, and what can trail runners do better? Because I think everyone wants to be good stewards of the canyon and make sure everyone has a good time. What specifically can they do better?
I think, if I had to suggest one thing, I would say start late at night and run through the night. Put your headlamps on. They do it at, other backcountry races and stuff. Especially if you don't want to deal with the mules, if you want to avoid the mules, if you want to avoid heavy traffic, then you don't have to deal with us, the Park Service personnel telling you, hey, you need to ease up, or, you need to follow this trail etiquette a little bit better. But that would be my one and only suggestion. Yeah.
Farther down the trail, past the iconic beauty at Cedar Ridge, at the 3-mile mark, we reach Skeleton Point and the top of the notorious red and white switchbacks, which are relentless in both directions for the next half mile or so.
Even on less serious days like today, when the weather is actually very, very pleasant, you don't see very many people coming up the red and whites with smiles on their faces, I've noticed. So a good chance for you, I'm guessing, to offer some encouragement.
Yeah, I try to offer as much encouragement as I can and make the whole situation as light as possible, joking a little bit. That gives me an opportunity to figure out what, at what stage these folks are in, and a lot of us will do that too. But, if they're a little sharp-tongued and not happy, then that gives me an idea as to where they are on that stage of the hike, and then I can kind of, I can play with that and make suggestions accordingly.
Well, I think I'm glad I've never run into you on my way up, because I will say that I have uttered more 4-letter words on the red and whites than I have at any place in the canyon. So I'm not sure what you would make of me there, Jerome.
Well, I've done that too. Sometimes the red and whites will take its toll on me as well.
The bleeping red and whites.
Yep, that's what it is.
But as we neared the bottom of this notorious stretch, the stillness and silence were broken by the sounds of shovels and even jackhammers. A trail crew was hard at work. And when you're told what they're doing is covering up some of South Kaibab's hated steps, well, the crew's jarring soundtrack began to sound more like a celestial choir.
They're replacing some of these, what people call steps. They're actually called water bars. And what they do
No. They're called soul crushers.
Soul crushers, yeah. Some people call them soul crushers. The term is water bar, and what they do is they're placed there to help prevent the rutting in the trail. And they're also spaced at that distance, mostly for the mule, the gait of the mule, not really necessarily for us as hikers. And if you're on the trail, you'll figure that one out really quick.
Yeah, we've noticed.
Yeah. So so now the Park Service, along with Xanterra and with the Youth Conservation Corps, and they've all come together, and they've started working. They started working on the South Kaibab Trail a few months ago, and they're bringing in what they call their dirt mules, and so they fill up these dirt bags on the mules, and they carry the dirt up to certain sections of the trail, and they dump it, and they turn around and they go back and refill. So there's a lot of work, a lot of time, and a lot of effort put into these trails, because once it starts raining and stuff, you'll notice that a lot of these trails will get a rut right down the middle, and sometimes the water bars will get really deep, sometimes up to 24 inches deep, and that's a strain on you as an individual when you're hiking.
And just so everyone understands what they're doing right now, what we're seeing them do, this is on the red and white switchbacks. And in my opinion, the red and whites are the toughest part of South Kaibab. And a big part of that is because they had those giant steps that you were talking about. Guys, they are filling in these steps. So in a lot of places where you had the big, giant, awkward steps, awkwardly spaced, awkwardly sized, soul crushing when you're going up especially, they're filled in now, and it's now a smooth trail.
Yeah, super smooth. You don't have to work so hard. It's a lot less stress on your knees, especially when you're going downhill. It's a lot less stress on your quads when you're going uphill. Before when you had those deep water bars or steps, I started turning to my side and sidestepping these things. Now you can go ahead and go at them head on. So it's a lot more convenient, a lot less stress on your legs.
I think what we're trying to say here is that these people doing this work, this is the definition of a trail angel.
Yes.
I mean, it really is. Let's not use that term loosely.
Yes.
We all owe them so much thanks. Wow.
Turns out it's the mule trains that are the hardest on these trails. And if you're on South Kaibab, you're likely to run into at least one. Jerome seems to know everyone involved, all the packers, the wranglers, and the handlers, and the many other park employees we pass on the way down.
Never gets old seeing him, man.
No, I think that back one is a biter. He's got a mouth guard.
Oh.
Yeah. I try to keep it just like on the surface with everybody, and that way I don't get too personal with anybody, and it's really neat. Every once in a while somebody will share what they're doing, on their days off and whatnot, and then you get to learn maybe some of their hobbies and some of their habits, and so it's really nice to work with them. I mean, just to have them say, "Hey, Jerome, how's it going?" As I'm passing by. I don't know how many packers and wranglers I've worked with over the years, probably 100, and for the most part, most of them are really nice people. I've had some really good friends that were packers and wranglers, and I had one friend that was really close to me. He's since passed, but that poor guy had two wrecks on this trail in particular, one at Windy Ridge and another one up near chimney, where the mules actually went over the edge, and he was able to catch himself, but his mules went out over and died. So those were years ago. But it happens when people are kind of spook these mules and around a corner or something, and those mules are temperamental, and they're very easily spooked. That's why we proceed with caution around them. Yeah.
What about when people do see the mules? I know the etiquette, the requirement is to step off to the side. But if trail runners are coming through, or I've seen dogs in the canyon, even though they're not welcome. Do they present a danger to the mules and the wranglers?
Dogs especially, yeah. I know
Do you see that from time to time?
often. There are service dogs that are controllable, and they'll mind their owner, but often, it's becoming. We see it more often now that people are just putting these service vests on animals and calling them support animals and stuff like that. And we've seen that these quote unquote support animals have a tendency to bark at the mules and and these mules will spook easily. And, I've had a couple of friends that have actually gone over the edge on their mules because of situations like this. So that's why we really, really try to, get that word out that, the mules have the right of way both up and down. And if you're a runner, hey, you got to stop just like everybody else, and you got to wait until the mules pass.
And don't bring your dogs.
Right.
There's a reason for it, you know?
We've got a kennel here at the Grand Canyon that's an excellent kennel. They'll take care of your dog, if you want to do some hiking. And, maybe the dog will make some new friends over at the kennel. I don't know, but...
that's another example. I think people just don't think about it. It's like, well, why can't I take my dog below the rim? It's like, well, this is an unusual environment where there are mules, and would you like to be on the back of a mule if a dog's barking at a mule and a mule spooks in the Grand Canyon?
No way. You'll go right over the edge. You know what else happens on occasion too are people on their mountain bikes, and we catch them and we'll say, hey, a lot of, if that's the case, then the mountain bike is confiscated. People are fined, and then they got to hike out.
As we close in on the tip-off, 4.5 miles and 3,260 feet below the rim, there's a sporadic stream of hikers on their way up. Those are the folks that Jerome enjoys speaking with the most.
Where are you from?
We are from Germany.
Germany?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you are from National Park Service.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Oh, we had a fun time at Phantom Range.
Excellent.
Always fun to run into people from other countries, huh?
Yeah, it is. And, I often joke about that I don't need to visit the rest of the world because the world comes to visit me. And I've met people from all over the world, from places I can't even pronounce, but it's so fun.
But it's fun that hasn't come without significant cost.
The hardest thing that I've had to swallow is that I've sacrificed everything in my life just for this one job. I've been consistent, but it was all for the National Park Service and all for this job. I sacrificed a marriage. I sacrificed my boys' livelihoods. I sacrificed other relationships. Everything has been for this job. And, in retrospect, maybe I should have stepped away from this job at some point and taken a better interest or more of an interest in my kids' lives and stuff like that. But, things happen through your lifetime. And, so that's just the way it turned out. Now I'm single, and not that I enjoy it, but I probably should have made some. I should have probably sacrificed the job at Phantom Ranch just to provide a better living for my kids. But
26, 27 years now. Looking back on it, what do you think it is that made you willing to make those sacrifices?
It finally dawned on me is that I'm an introvert for the most part, and I think I really enjoy being by myself. And this provided that, along with a paycheck, but it also provided that kind of lifestyle where I could be by myself and be my own person and work by myself and work at Phantom Ranch by myself with what I, and take care of my own responsibilities. And I guess I got lucky as far as in that perspective that I actually am doing something that I really enjoy. But on the flip side of that coin, there were all the sacrifices.
Below the tip-off, it's a steep 2 miles to the river. Soon after, we're crossing the famed Kaibab Suspension Bridge, better known simply as Black Bridge. And on the other side, even though he's looking at a scene his eyes have taken in countless times before, Jerome pulls the ultimate tourist move.
What does it say that as many times as you've been down here, you're still pulling out your phone and taking pictures?
Right. And I got thousands of pictures, man. Because like I said earlier, that every time I come down, I see something brand new and different. There's always something, a different shadow or even people, or just there's always something different, man.
What's got your attention today?
I think the green in the river. I haven't seen it.
So green.
I have not seen it this green in a long time.
Gorgeous.
That's an indication that we have not had any rainfall or anything anywhere, and spring runoff hasn't started yet.
At the junction where you can turn north toward Phantom Ranch, we instead take the left, crossing Bright Angel Creek, and arriving at the cabin that's been Jerome's home for much of the last 26 years. There's even a wood plaque with his name on it in the window.
Accommodations is a really small cabin, one-room cabin with all the amenities. I've got a heater, I've got air conditioning, a stove, refrigerator, and microwave, everything that I need, a TV if I want it, with DVDs that don't have any Netflix or anything like that. But that's pretty much it, and then my food comes down, my supplies comes down by mule. So they should be showing up here in the next few hours. And I'll wheelbarrow all that supplies over to here. And then after that, it's business as usual down here. I start taking care of my responsibility down here. Next Tuesday, I'll be back on the trail and headed back out.
And that's the circle of life for Jerome Chavez. A life of stewardship and adventure. The only life he knows, from the rim to the river and back, time and time again.
Maybe it was a calling and I turned the hiking into my craft. I thought wastewater operation was going to be my craft, but as it turns out, the hiking turned into my craft. And so I think I'm kind of mastered that. So, I've been fortunate. I have. Looking in retrospect, looking at everything around us in this world and what's going on with the government and everywhere else around the world, I'd say I have it pretty easy, man. I got lucky. I did. Super lucky.
That is Jerome Chavez. I am so grateful that he allowed me to follow along and help tell his story. I think I learned more on that hike than all of my other canyon hikes combined. Now, if you wondered about the critters he lives amongst at the bottom of the canyon, he says that while he once stepped on a rattlesnake, it didn't strike, though he hasn't been as lucky with scorpions. 26 stings and counting. Yeah, one for every year. As for his future, Jerome is 54 and says the hikes are taking enough of a toll on him that he doesn't fully recover from them for 3 days, both down and up. So he's looking at perhaps hanging up his boots at the end of 2025 and finishing his service on the rim, or topside, as they say. After he retires from the Park Service, Jerome says he won't stop working and that he'll either help his son with his junk removal business in Phoenix or perhaps get his barber's license and spend his days cutting hair and telling stories of his adventures in the Grand Canyon. Folks, if you find value in the show, we sure would appreciate a rating and review on whatever platform you're listening on, like this one from Julie Egg on Apple Podcast, who writes, "Awesome, entertaining overview of canyon hiking. Excellent resource whether you're a seasoned canyon hiker or looking to get into it. Thanks for gathering this info and sharing it in a fun way." Well, thank you, Julie, for the review. It is so greatly appreciated. Well, the Rim to Rim pack from Bright Angel Outfitters that we've been talking about for months now should be available by the beginning of May. This is the day pack designed for the biggest Grand Canyon day hikes and beyond. Totally inspired by my hundreds of miles below the rim. It's a full-size 22-liter pack. But the big differentiator is the collection of 6 pockets and pouches on the shoulder straps. So you can keep your phone, snacks, electrolytes, whatever, close at hand so you don't have to stop and take your pack off every time you need something. The Rim to Rim pack is also water resistant, built to hold a water bladder in a fully insulated pocket, and it is super comfy, unique, and beautiful. I've taken it on multiple Rim to Rims, and it's still just like brand new. It'll be available soon exclusively at brightangeloutfitters.com. At Bright Angel Outfitters, we do it for the love of the canyon. All right, that's it for now. I'm Brian Special, encouraging you, as always, to go hike the canyon. Take that first step, embrace the journey, and when you get there, whether it's for time goals or taking your time, just hike your own hike and take in all that is one of the most spectacular places on Earth. We'll see you next time on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show, presented by Bright Angel Outfitters.